This is what we call a method of reasoning question. This one, the question sentence says, of the following, which one most accurately describes Gamba's strategy of argumentation? So we are, then just sort of quickly take a scan at the answer choices. You see that every single answer choice begins with a verb, and that's because what we're trying to describe what the argument is doing. Is the argument questioning a conclusion? Is it questioning a claim? Is it attempting to refute something, right? So this style of question we've seen before on flawed method of reasoning questions. Now, nothing here tells us that this is a flaw. But for flawed method of reasoning questions, we also realize this is a level of, this is a level at which we're engaging if this is the argument, we're engaging at it from above, from a descriptive view, right? That's what we're doing. So just like flawed method reasoning questions, this type of question, the answer choices that are incorrect very, very likely will be the correct answer choice for a different type of argument, because that's all it is. I mean, it's like, these are the molds, the cookie cutters from which these cookies are made. So if you can do these questions well, and it's highly revealing of how the logical reasoning questions are being made. All right, let's take a look at what Gamba has to say. I'm not even going to attempt to. M claims that the Southwest Hopeville Neighborhood Association overwhelmingly opposes the new water system. Okay. Citing this as evidence of citywide opposition. So this guy M is saying, look, this association overwhelmingly opposes the new water system. Because of that, I am going to conclude that, I being M, is going to conclude that there's citywide opposition. I don't know. Anyway, so let's see. I think Gamma's going to try to attack this right here. He's going to say something, just because the boys club, think XYZ doesn't mean that the girls club also think XYZ. Certainly you can't say the whole city, the whole population of boys and girls think XYZ, right? So I get the feeling that's how you're going to, at least if you're presented with an argument like this, that seems like the very vulnerable part of the argument to attack. Is the Southwest Hopeville Neighborhood Association representative of the city? Who knows? The association did pass a resolution opposing the new water system, but only 25 of the 350 members voted. Oh, okay. So see, now this is surprising, because now I'm beginning to get skeptical because of what Gamma is telling me. I'm beginning to get skeptical that the association themselves even, opposes the water system, or overwhelmingly opposes water system. Because look, the vast majority of people didn't even vote. Right, 25 people voted, and 10 in favor. Further, so almost half of them were in favor. Furthermore, the 15 that opposed represent far less than the 1% of Hopeville's population. Exactly, right? So this is not overwhelmingly. And now I'm highly skeptical that Southwest Hopeville Neighborhood Association is overwhelmingly opposed to the system. So I disbelieve M's premise. So now I certainly have no reason to believe M's conclusion. This almost never happens, by the way. On LSAT, if you are encountered with an argument, you're being asked to weaken the argument. Attacking the premise is something that the LSAT never asks you to do, but you have to recognize it when it's happening, when the LSAT is doing it. Right? So Gamba is attacking M's argument precisely, saying, oh, your premise, really? This association overwhelmingly opposes the new system? I don't think so. How can you call this an overwhelming opposition? So one should not assume that so few views represents the views of the majority of the Hopeville's residents. So then, of course, of the 350 members of the association, that's less than 1% of the population of the city, or the ville, I suppose. So then, certainly, it's if the sample doesn't even convincingly display opposition, then certainly you can't say the population convincingly displays opposition. Right? So wrong on so many levels, attacking the premise and attacks whether the premise supports conclusion. So you see, really, the G is making a very good argument. He's saying, this is like this part right here. Furthermore, he's saying, I've already dismantled your argument, but even if the association, even if I can concede to you your premise, even though I just wrecked it, but even if I concede to you your premise, the support still doesn't exist. Right? Even if it's true that the association does overwhelmingly oppose the system, that's no evidence that the city opposes it, because it's just not enough of the population is too small. 15. I guess we can figure this out, right? The city has if 15 is, let's say, 1%, then I suppose it's 15,000, right, or 1,500. Yeah, 10%, 1%. Yeah, 1,500 would be the total number of people. All right. Anyway, that was sort of a useless exercise. Okay, so let's now figure out which one of the following answer choices describes how this argument is working. So with method of reasoning, you have to be very careful to bring this abstract language down to the level of the argument. Otherwise, you get lost. Otherwise, you're not really understanding what you're reading. A says questioning a conclusion, right? It is questioning conclusion. It's what conclusion? So you got to bring it to the level. It's questioning this conclusion, M's conclusion. Actually, I should use a different color for this. It questions this conclusion based on the results of a vote on the grounds that, so this so far is good, on the grounds that people with certain views are more likely to vote. No, wrong. That it could have been right. There are plenty of stimuli on the LSAT where this describes perfectly what the stimulus is doing. I question your conclusion drawn from a vote because your voter base was biased. For example, let's say we vote, do we make the tax laws more complicated or less complicated? And then as a vote turns out that it's people decide the tax law should be more complicated. But if we look into the data, we find out that the majority of people who voted were attorneys, or the people you asked were attorneys. Then yeah, attorneys are, let's say, tax attorneys. Then they have an incentive to make tax law more complicated, so they have jobs, right? So see, that's where, on the grounds that people with certain views, attorneys, are more likely to vote. Anyway, maybe not the best example, but it's excellent practice. In fact, I think it's essential, necessary practice to take wrong answer choices from method of reasoning questions like this one and flaw method of reasoning questions and make up arguments that are right for that answer choice. That's the only way you're going to become familiar and best buddies with these wrong answer choices, because you got to be able to eliminate them quick. You have to be familiar with them. B says questioning a claim supported by statistical data. Sure, claim supported is this overwhelmingly opposed claim. It has to be that one. He's questioning this claim. By arguing that statistical data can be manipulated, no, wrong. You see, at this point, you just cross out and you move on. He's not saying you're manipulating data to support whatever view the interpreter wants to support. He's saying just look at the data. You're simply misrepresenting the data. No one's manipulating the data. Here's an example of manipulating data, and this is something that law schools do, actually. So let's say this is like a, middle of the pack law school, and of their graduates, half of them don't find jobs at all. So their salary is 0. And then say 10% of them find jobs, or let's say 20% of them find jobs that pay say $200,000 a year. Okay? And then if they report, this is, like we said, 80% is here and 20% is here. Now, if they report the average income in their employment statistics, that will be highly misleading. Actually, my math is not good enough to figure out what the average is, but the average will be something, let's just pretend the average is say 50K. My OCD got the best of me. I had to figure it out. So the average is 40K. If this were the case, the average would be 40K. So anyway, all right, so if this law school reports average income 40K, you might think it's a good idea to go to this law school, but you see, that's manipulating data, because nobody makes 40K. They shouldn't be reporting the average. They can report the average if they want. Right? You see, because if you enter this law school, you're either making $0 or you're making $200,000. So this average, why do you even bother reporting? So that's an example of manipulating data. So, see, this just doesn't happen here. C says it attempts to refute an argument by showing that contrary to what has been claimed, the truth of the premises does not guarantee the truth of the conclusion. This is really good. This answer choice describes every single weakening question the LSAT ever asks. That's exactly what we're doing. We're saying the truth of the premise doesn't guarantee the truth of the conclusion. But see, the problem is that that only describes a little bit of the argument. His main attack is precisely saying that this premise is not true. Or there is no overwhelming opposition from the neighborhood association to the new water system. So that's what makes C incorrect. D says it criticizes a view on the grounds that the view is based on evidence that is in principle impossible to confirm, but that's not right. We're not criticizing this. Here's what D would sound like. Oh, I'm pretending to be G now, Gamba. I would say, your evidence is in principle this survey or this vote that you speak of. No one's, you don't have any record of it. I cannot take a look at the video recording of it, or just there's no way in principle for me to actually confirm this. But no, that's not true. He lays out the details right here, the evidence right here. E says, attempting to cast doubt on a conclusion. Yes, we definitely attempt to cast doubt on this conclusion. That's what we're trying to do. By claiming that the statistical sample on which the conclusion is based, that's the premise here about the association overwhelmingly opposing a system, right? You see what I mean? By taking this abstract language, pushing it into your stimulus, into your argument to make sense of it. The statistical sample on which it's based is too small to be dependable. Exactly. It's too small. Only 25-35 voted. It's too small. You can't say that this is overwhelming representation. That's what makes E the correct answer choice.